Hello, Chemistry 222 class. So, another video for you. This one is, as it says, on the molecules of meditation. And I was inspired by my meditation teacher, and also because it is Mindful May. There are lots of global meditations going on and prayers. You can always Google it. If you're interested, it seems like every other day there's a different global meditation happening this month. And also, as I mentioned, only 3 of you have picked topics. And I usually find myself in this. So I thought maybe I'd inspire 1 or 2 of you to come up with a topic as we walk through, and to also remind you some of the things in your presentation. So I read an article a year ago on these different molecules of meditation, and the very first one is my favorite topic, is Anandamide. And there's the molecules. So a reminder, when you do your presentation, you will want to make sure you have the molecule in there. That's a picture of me doing my Qigong. I've been doing it for over 25 years. And so it's part of my meditation practice every day. This is in Montana, actually looking over Yellowstone National Park, probably down there. And so Anandamide is named for Ananda, who was Buddha's right-hand man. And so after Buddha moved on, he went around teaching, and there were like 499 enlightened monks or whoever. And Ananda had not yet reached enlightenment. And they were like, Ananda, we're having this big meeting, this big conference. You need to be number 500. And Ananda tried and tried. And the more he tried, the more it was elusive to reach it. And then the whole idea is being very mindful and stuff. And then one night as he was going to sleep, he was just being very decided, this is it. He's going to do it. And he's being very mindful. He put his foot down. He sat on his bed. He was just being very mindful that he was laying down and that his head was going to touch the pillow, and he reached enlightenment. And that probably won't happen for me because I am blessed with falling asleep in under a second. And everybody's always amazed by that. But it is called Ananda, the first part for Ananda. And amide is like peptide bond, is a functional group in organic chemistry. So they combine the 2 words, and it's Anandamide. And it was first isolated in 1992. It is found in our brain, and again, it means, the word in Sanskrit is the word for bliss, and it's an amide. It is an agonist of the CB1 receptors, so some of you might know where we're going with this. And it's common in pretty much every tissue in our body, which is really fascinating about all of these, that they initially isolated them from brain tissue or something, and then they're finding receptors for them all over our body, especially a lot of these in our immune system. All right. And it is an endocannabinoid. So endo, you're going to see this word, this prefix means inside. So it's native to our body. Our body produces it, and we make it from arachidonic acid, which is not essential. It is an omega-6, and so omega-6s are a precursor for this. All right, and pretty much every picture that you find of anandamide will always have this beautiful plant in it, which is for marijuana, because this is where THC also works on. But let's talk about anandamide first. So fatty acid amide hydrolase. It's quite a mouthful, right? So anandamide is broken down by this enzyme. Whenever we see the ending ACE, it means it's an enzyme. And so this enzyme is also found in our bodies. And this enzyme breaks down anandamide. So anandamide makes you blissful, and then this enzyme breaks down the bliss very rapidly. So FAAH, fa, right? So you kind of feel like, but it turns out you could be 1 in 5 humans. 20% of our population on this planet has a genetic mutation. So if you were one of those, you actually don't express this enzyme. So if you didn't express this enzyme, well, I have a theory. You would have enhanced levels of happiness. Like when you're a child, if you watch children, they just are happy and they can be happy so fast. They can turn on and off. And somewhere we lose it in our teen years. And I think that's when this enzyme gets turned on. And yeah, University of Calgary compared a group of genetically happy humans, and they injected this gene, this quote unquote mutation, into some mice, and the mice were happy. And the mice and the men always had much higher levels of anandamide and a greater ability to extinguish fear-based memories. And so the title for this was The Molecules of Meditation. So yes, indeed, meditators. So that's a Tibetan monk. And all the Tibetan monks I have been blessed to meet and know personally are always smiling and always happy. And it was something actually also with the Sherpas, who Sherpa means Easterner. They came over from Tibet. They followed their yak herds. And that's why the English and all the Europeans who were first climbing Everest used the Sherpas, because they lived high in the Himalayas and they were always happy. And so I am pretty sure that all of them living at the high altitude maybe gives you this mutation, because they do. They're always smiling and they're always joking. But not only do they don't have this enzyme, so they're producing higher levels of anandamide, they also have a greater ability to extinguish fear-based memories. And they have greater connectivity between the prefrontal cortex, which is our planning, and the amygdala. Sorry, I'm not an anatomy teacher, which is our emotional memory, especially memories of fear. And so so the mice and the men meet each other and they're always happy. So Mickey Mouse, he must also have a mutation that does not express the enzyme. So better communication between these two key centers of our brain leads to lower anxiety and much greater emotional stability. Doesn't that sound like a wonderful thing right now? So how could you get this mutation? Can't buy it at Home Depot. Oh, wait, let's see. This is actually the true runner's high. So the more a person exercises, the more you do release anandamide. So exercise is a wonderful thing. It is also a natural pain reliever, and it's also an anxiety reliever, an anxiolytic. Wonderful names here, right? And it has your body release more dopamine. Dopamine is our reward and motivation neurotransmitter. So you feel good. Dopamine's the one that most of the street drugs are trying to mimic, like cocaine and meth. And of course, one of the best things you can do to have higher is people have regular meditation, mindfulness practice, and prayer have an increased level of anandamide. I just watched the church service, my mom's church, and Father Hank is amazing. He is just always smiling. So he's a mutant. I'm 100% guarantee. And so you too can be. And it is just having a regular meditation practice. It brings bliss in a way that nothing else does. This calmness. And so you can make your genes are not set. You can change them. And this little girl I sponsor in Nepal, and all the pictures of these kids, they're always so joyful. So like you were as a child, bringing that inner child out. Oh, I mentioned I would get back to this. So this is what anandamide actually looks like when it's folded. It's not a huge molecule, but this is what THC looks like. And so even though if you looked at a picture of them flattened down in 2 dimensions, it is the 3-dimensional picture where they look alike. And so THC is an exogenous, meaning it comes from outside and it binds to the same receptor. And so it will give you that feeling of bliss. And so they're also the cannabinoids. And this is interesting. So THC actually will stimulate the receptor. And the CBD actually inhibits the enzyme. And just to make you aware, this is not part of the extra credit, and it is not part of the lab option. So, and this is why. Oh, I've shown you pictures of these before, right? With the sugar, and there was something else where I showed you the healthy brain. This is the brain on somebody who is just a weekend user of marijuana frequently. And this was pictures from Harvard. There's many of these pictures actually online. So make you think, maybe meditation. Meditation makes your brain beautiful. Another thing about anandamide and embryo was it is the first communication, they believe, between the mother and the baby. It's a chemical messenger that actually goes between mother and baby. And it is believed that THC actually interferes with the ability of the signal. So whether this is ethical or not, they exposed mouse embryos to THC. Probably not in that way. And they found lower survival rates and many abnormalities. A reminder, you'll have to have citations and stuff. But make sure when you pick your topics, sometimes you may find what you're looking for, but keep digging. All right, and I am a chocoholic. Chocolate double bliss, dark chocolate, again, not milk chocolate, which is so high in sugar, but dark chocolate has lots of amazing molecules in it. So this molecule, N-acetylenolene, prevents the breakdown. So it must somehow bind to the enzyme and block it. There's also 3 other molecules in dark chocolate that mimic anandamide and stimulate the endocannabinoid receptors. Pretty fascinating. So they knew that there were exogenous cannabinoids, and they found the receptor first. And as soon as they found the receptor, that's how a lot of these worked, is they started saying, well, there must be something already in our body if this receptor is there, because why would we have this receptor unless it's already something's in us? Anyway, there's a periodic table, because this is chemistry, remember. Yeah, and the 1As, ones that are most reactive, they're the darkest. Look at that. All right. So molecule meditation number 2 is serotonin. This one has already been picked. And it is our happy neurotransmitter. And there's a beautiful picture. You can find lots of pictures. Some people pick their molecule based on some of the fun pictures they can find for their presentation. So if you have low serotonin, you will have depression, or the Hulk. He had low serotonin. He had no serotonin. His inability to control his anger issues was related to the gamma, whatever, knocked out his serotonin completely. And normal serotonin, well, we can take drugs, or you can meditate and laugh. And again, as I mentioned, the Tibetan monks I have known, I didn't meet the Dalai Lama, but I was sitting in an audience with a bunch of Sherpas and Tibetans in downtown Portland 20 years ago. I remember nursing Joey. Many of the women were nursing their babies, and we were all just sitting on the floor, and he was sitting just raised up a little bit, and the whole talk was in Tibetan. I don't speak Tibetan. I didn't need to, because he was just sending out compassion for 2 hours. It was the most amazing experience, truly amazing. I've never gone to one of his talks where he speaks in English. I've heard many of them, but nothing could compare to that, being with his people. All right, so scientists from University of Montreal showed meditation has a direct impact on our production of serotonin. So here's a question though. 90% of your serotonin receptors. Do you ever have butterflies in your tummy? That is because 90% of the receptors are actually found in your digestive tract. Serotonin affects mood, social behavior, appetite, digestion, sleep, memory, and sexual desire. What you eat affects all of these. So when you eat something and you're just feeling like, whoa, you don't want to do anything, you're moody, look at that connection there. All right, it regulates movement of small intestine. So actually, diarrhea drugs target serotonin. That's actually how they work. So interesting. All right. And yeah. All right. Move on. Fun cartoons. Right. Our microbiota is in our digestive tract. So again, healthy change. You got to start this week. Full moon is, I think, 7th, evening of May 7th. So I recommend legumes every day. Eating your vegetables, salad every day, 3 pieces of fruit every day. Just go for it. Do something big. Go big or go home. See what happens. There's so many different slides of things that can increase. And notice these are all beautiful, real food from Mother Nature. All right. And then you get these crazy slides that talk about noradrenaline and dopamine and what each one does. And in all honesty, all it matters is to be happy. Be happy. Another thing that's pretty cool, hallucinogens, they mimic serotonin. So although this is a cool picture because it shows the shape, and it is all about these shapes fit in. So DMT, psilocybin, I think I mentioned that, mescaline, they're all stimulating serotonin. So last year when I did this talk, nobody picked a single one of my 10 molecules I go through, but 5 people came up at the end and they picked all the ones, amphetamines. That was with dopamine and stuff. So there is some really cool stuff. Anyway, if you want to take ecstasy or any of the other ones, your body does release the mother load of serotonin. And then after, your body doesn't go back to this because you actually get nerve damage and you go into kind of a dark place. Meditation does not damage your nerves. It makes them beautiful. All right, molecule number 3, oxytocin. This one's always picked. Nobody's picked it yet. It is the love hormone, stimulated during sex, nurturing, and group flow. Where's the group flow these days? There still is. We're still all connected. We're all one huge group. And the biggest is during birth and also breastfeeding. And gives us an increased sense of empathy, trust, altruism, bonding. Duke University, go Blue Devils! Oxytocin appears to be part of the way our bodies support spiritual beliefs. Fascinating, huh? And so that's a quote from Rumi, greatest poet ever, probably. With life as short as a half-taken breath, don't plant anything but love. Really good motto for this day, for every day and any day. It's a wonderful time to remind us of those things. All right. So, yeah, I mentioned that it is released, and that's just picture of Joey. So oxytocin releases nitrous oxide, which is actually molecule number 8 in this, and nitrous oxide releases endotropic factor, and then your heart vibrates, right? Nitrous oxide is what helps your heart to vibrate, and it acts as an amplifier, and you're even more bonded to the person. So that's my kiddo when he was little, and it amplifies your feeling in your mind as well as in your heart, and that feeling is the bonding or love. So universal gratitude, and that's Joey with my mom back in 2005, and every day that's part of my meditation is just sending gratitude. I send gratitude to each of you every day too. It's a pretty amazing thing. And the importance of having a purpose in life. And so Father Hank he does amazing talks. He talked about when he was in a monk, they each had like these titles, and when you became retired, your title was Aura Orb, something like that. So basically your job was to pray for the world. I mean, isn't that great? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Instead of thinking of things as retirement, we just get to have then that chance to pray for the world, to send love to everyone. All right. This is our next one, endorphins. I don't remember what number we're on. So endorphins are, they often think of them as the runner high, but again, there's several that are released when you exercise. This one's very fascinating because it actually binds the opiate receptor, and yes, it is released in meditation. This is what it looks like. I think I show a picture of it folded, and this is morphine. So morphine has been isolated from the poppy plants for thousands of years, and we actually have one in our body, so that's why it was called an endomorphine. So it was, when it was discovered, they knew there had to be something inside of us. So it's endogenous morphine, and that's just another picture of it showing the fold, and it's probably that ring that has a similar shape and binds the receptor, and it is our perception of pain. And so our body has that. So a lot of pain medications, this is what they're trying to mimic. Acupuncture, this is what it releases, and acupuncture absolutely works. I actually have a degree and master's in Chinese medicine. And so after going through and getting my doctorate in biochemistry, I guess part of me knew that we were looking at this from the wrong way. And so I went to Chinese medicine, and Joey was born, I got a job, and make choices. And now I think as Joey's growing up, anyway, chocolate and nuts, they help to release more endorphins. Fascinating. I have an obsession with chocolate. So the receptors are found all over your body, including your immune system, and of course your digestive system. So meditation improves your immunity. The one place you have no receptors is on your brain itself. So because our brain has no pain receptors. Our brain can't feel pain. That's the joke there of the cartoon. And that was just the runner's high. But again, I believe now it is well established. I believe it's more than Anandamide. This is actually fantastic. That smiling releases endorphins. It probably does for many things. And when you see this picture, you smile. How can you not? And yeah, other things that release endorphins, belly dancing apparently, qigong, that's what I was doing in that very first picture, and yeah, all different types of meditation. So the opioid receptor is our perception of pain. So there's heroin and morphine. So schizophrenia, autism, ADHD, gluten is another one that binds this receptor. And so if you take away gluten, a lot of different things respond. I think I have gluten on the next slide. Some reason I rearranged the slides. All right, naloxone. I actually had one of the best presentations I've had in the past few years with somebody who works up at OHSU, and she did it on naloxone and talked about the whole opioid problem that's going on. It was right before you started seeing it in the news, and it was just fantastic presentation and really passionate. There's oxycodone, and so maybe you're not into the street drugs, but these, yeah, pretty interesting. All binding to that receptor so we don't feel pain, because for some reason we're afraid of pain. And if you actually give somebody this medications, this one, the heroin addict is their buddy, they're passed out because they overdosed, and their buddy just drops them off on the street in front of the hospital and drives off. This is what the police or the medics will give in an attempt to revive them. But it also decreases your consumption of food, and it is actually given to people for weight loss and for smoking cessation, and as an antidepressant, all in one. And you can see the shape of it is similar to all of these. And here's our slide on gluten and gliadin. They are actually peptides, so small proteins. And when Joey and I drove cross country a couple of years ago, I was amazed because the wheat was no longer knee high, or the wheat was only knee high. So I, as a small child, would walk through my grandma's wheat fields, and yeah, it was taller than me. It wasn't that I was so short. I really haven't grown much, like my little dog who doesn't grow. But I am taller than Gnome, since most of you have never seen, some of you have never seen me, but we modified wheat so it didn't grow as high, so we could harvest it twice a year. And that changed the peptides. Our body digests by cutting, and we can't recognize, it doesn't cut one at a time. It cuts between certain amino acids, and in nature, amino acids always show up in certain orders. And when this got modified, our body can't cut it apart correctly. So there's tripeptide, so it breaks it into, like, there's only 2 places it can cut, and you get, and some of our intestines then absorb it incorrectly, and yeah, causes problems. So I'm somebody who became gluten. I have gluten issues. I haven't tried it, in all honesty, in, it was a year ago, 2 years ago, and it actually sends me into depression. I go into a not so happy place for like 2 weeks until I can clear it out of me, and so it's just not worth it. So I just avoid it. Most people think of it, it does cause pain and other things, but most people aren't aware of the emotional issues it can create. And most people who don't want to, that's an endorphin, and you can see similarities. And again, it's going to fold in your body and look like the other ones. So it's an exogenous endorphin. It binds our opiate. It's our perception of pain. And it's why people keep eating. And it's why people crave bread. And you don't eat just one piece, you eat another one. And it's why people don't want to give up bread. So it's estimated since the 1950s that the average male is now at least 50 pounds heavier. The waist size is phenomenally huge increase. And I know most of you are young. And you all see it. Just go to the store. Just look on TV. And those of you who came from another country, you notice it the first thing. And you know why. And it's this. It's this. It's the processed food. So if you're like, oh, I already eat healthy, I'm not going to do a healthy change. Give up processed food for the rest of the term and the rest of your life, and your body will thank you. So 48.1 billion, 1,800% increase in the past 30 years. So it's convenient for who? And you all know who owns Kraft? Is Philip Morris, the cigarette? Yeah. They are making sure, and I'm pretty sure pharmaceuticals are in on this. So it's been known as the pandemic that's been happening, and now we're sidetracked by this. But gluten is extremely addictive. It alters our behavior. It induces pleasure and withdrawal. Our intestines actually release protein that changes the permeability, so you can actually allows this tripeptides as it breaks down, and yeah, so I just avoid it. And that was a book I had read, and that was his motto in the book. All right, I already talked about the opioid receptor. That happens. So let's see where I went from here. All right, so this is, again, I'm trying to stimulate you with some ideas. So there is a molecule. So you all remember when you got a boo-boo or an owie when you were a kid and you would want your mom or your dad to kiss it? Well, it turns out there is a painkiller that is in human spit. It is more powerful than morphine. And there's the picture of opioorphin, and there's the picture of morphine. And it doesn't have the addictive side effects that morphine does. So researchers in Paris injected rats with something that was painful, and then they applied this. So when a rat is injured, it licks its wound, right, an animal, and then as soon as they applied the spit, basically, right, you just spit on the animal, they stopped having to lick it because it felt better. And they started playing the fiddle and dancing. And then they asked them to walk across a bed of nails. I mean, who would ask an animal or a human to do this? But I don't know, some researchers did it. And the rats that had been injected with human spit, it wasn't human spit at this point, they didn't feel the pinpricks. So anyway, interesting molecule. So you can just Google molecules of interest. You need to find something that gravitates to you, that you're like, I want to know more about human spit, right? Or you're like thinking, maybe then I could sell my spit to pay for school. Just remember, your kisses are kind of magical. They are a kind of magic. All right, or this one. So Dracula's saliva could save your life. So vampire bats' saliva has an enzyme called DSPA, or DPSA, sorry. That's a typo I forgot to fix. And so when the vampire bat bites the cow, it injects this enzyme also, and it prevents the blood of the cow from clotting so he can feast. Dracula and the vampire bats can feast, and it is because strokes are ischemic, and that means you get a blood clot. And so they found that when they inject this into mice, it was much more effective at breaking up the blood clot. And there is a time in which if you go in within a certain time of having the stroke, and they can inject this, you have absolutely none of the effects that a stroke would cause. All right. GABA is known as the calming neurotransmitter. I'd say I picked this one actually last year. So it is in balance with glutamate. So GABA, and this is glutamate, is the top one, which is incorrectly named here as glutamic acid. It's actually glutamate. And then GABA, so glutamate makes your brain, it's an excitatory amino acid, and GABA helps to slow down the chatter, sharpening your focus. So most anti-anxiety meds mimic or stimulate GABA, and meditation does too. 27% increase. And so any kind of mindful exercise, prayer, meditation, it was much more powerful than exercise. It's pretty amazing. Meditation is releasing all of these. So people addicted, alcohol, drugs, tobacco, caffeine, we all have our addiction. They all have low GABA. Oh, notice chocolate's not on there. Apparently chocolate's not an addiction. All right, chocolate's an opioid, by the way, as is casein. Remember my talk about casein and the cheese? All right, GABA also interacts with the pancreas. So it has to do with digestion, insulin, and those are my monks. So when I lived in Salt Lake, I had the opportunity, this is back in 1992, there was 1,000 Tibetans given visas to come to this country in different countries around the world, and these 3 monks came to Salt Lake City, and I happened to be in the right place at the right time and got to be their tutor. So this guy here in the blue, he never spoke a word of English. That's how great a tutor I was. These other 2 became pretty fluent, so it's Dawa and Sonam. That's me back, gosh, 1993. Were you guys all alive? And this is Pima, who's standing there in his stud like. This is in, of course, southern Utah, but they were some of my dearest. They are my dearest, some of my dearest friends. So growth hormone is another one that's released by meditation. It makes you feel younger, energized. And it repairs tissues and lowers growth hormone or aging. As you get older, your growth hormone levels naturally decrease, and you end up, when you have lower levels, with weaker bones and decreased muscle mass and more body fat. It regulates our moods, our motivations, our fatigue. You can feel fatigued, have lower willpower. Oh, look over here, higher levels strengthen the immune system. Yeah, and so our heart is a muscle. So how can we make more growth hormone? Well, you can get injections. You can buy it online. You could become a baby again. Look at that, sleeping like a baby. Well, or you can just produce more delta brain waves. So how can we produce delta brain waves? Well, when you have deep, deep sleep, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned we changed our modem so it goes off. Our Wi-Fi in our house is turned off at night for at least 8 hours, and my sleep is back like that. Everybody who's ever known me has been like, I've never seen anyone but a baby sleep like you, and I'm out. The first 2 weeks of this term was when we got the new Wi-Fi thing, and I was waking up and I was like, ah, and I ponder that so many of you sleep with your cell phones right next to you. You got to turn your cell phones off, turn them off at night, put them in airplane mode, something. If you have a Wi-Fi, program it so it's off for those 8 hours when you're asleep. Anyway, and also in the deep meditation. All right, melatonin. And they're finding there's some really cool studies. So yes, 20, 25 years, 40, 50 years of practice, you're going to get much deeper into meditation. But they're finding they can train people in very short times now. So number 7 molecule is melatonin, which is sleep. Nobody's picked this one yet. So darkness. You have to sleep in total darkness. Get a face mask. Get the blackout blinds. So darkness activates the enzyme. So if you look at your cell phone screen after 10 o'clock at night, you inhibit your body's ability to make melatonin. If you look at your computer screen late at night, now you guys are all younger than me. A lot of you are 18 to early 20s. And I think your cycles are shifted. I don't know if that's natural or if you create it that way, because that's when, you know, your parents weren't up in high school and so you could get away with stuff. I don't know. It also influences appetite, anxiety, memory, perception, and of course, meditation. Holy moly, it doubles it. You could take a pill, or you could just learn to breathe. 300%, that's 4-fold increase in regular meditators. 4-fold higher levels of melatonin, sleeping like this beautiful puppy in regular meditation. Oh, I love that picture. I don't know who got their dogs, but it is released by the pineal gland, which is that seed that is in our brain, and it is our biological clock. It is a protector against free radicals, so it replaces cells. Your body repairs itself as you sleep. And that's why you always look fresher in the morning. My students last term said, no, we don't. No, we don't. And oncostatic means it fights cancer. There is absolutely a huge connection with breast cancer and women who don't sleep in darkness. When you have children, do not use night lights. Allow them to sleep in darkness. So melatonin, you need these levels. It actually slows down cell division. Yeah. All right, molecule number 8 is nitric oxide. So there's several. Nitrogen and oxygen are what's in our atmosphere, in the air that we breathe. And so there's a lot of compounds with the two of them. This is obviously a free radical because we would have 5 + 6, 11, and that's why it works. There's our lone electron there on our nitrogen. It is actually a powerful vasodilator. It relaxes our arteries and stimulates the flow. Nitroglycerin is also an awesome topic. And no, Isaac, you don't get to do that one again. And it releases nitric oxide, and meditation releases it. So that's why you start breathing slower, because it helps to relax the arteries. This is the one I talked about when I was talking about oxytocin. All right. I'm also doing this talk today because I was supposed to be on a meditation retreat this weekend. You're going to have a substitute teacher this coming week. But I'm having my meditation retreat with all of you instead. All right, molecule number 9 is dehydroepiandrosterone. and it is known as the longevity molecule. These all have their little classy names. So DHEA is, I had first learned about it when I was in Chinese medical school, and so a lot of women with going through menopause will seek out alternative medicine at that time in their life. And so DHEA is one of the things they will often give for women because it increases your sex hormones, which decrease during menopause. All right. But if we measured our DHEA levels, you can actually see what a person's true physiological age is. And many people your age, all of you beautiful, wonderful students, might be surprised to find out your physiological true age could end up higher than mine. This, by the way, I have this picture here because I find it really amusing. This is not meditation. This can be meditation. It's wonderful. It's grounding. But you don't have to sit like that. In fact, I would contend that they're not actually sitting correctly. You have to sit the way that you're going to be comfortable. And so a lot of people want to sit on a chair. You could also lie down. There is an advantage to sitting because the spine is this beautiful connection between the earth and the crown and the heavens and stuff. You can stand, you can lay down, you can sit in a chair. You do want to sit erect. You don't want to be all slouched and just like attitude. That doesn't count. Anyway, if you can do it for real. Those delta waves. Do you see how sleep like a baby again? So as I mentioned, it's the precursor for the sex hormones. And this dude, 43.77% increase in regular meditators. And the reason is because there's a double effect here. So cholesterol is the precursor for all our steroids. These are steroid hormones. When you push it towards this path, which is what meditation does, more DHEA, it decreases this path. And this path goes to cortisol, and cortisol is the stress hormone. So if you're always stressed, you end up making this. If you're staying up late, you're going to make this. If you're any of these gingerbread men, you can pick which stress you are. So you get more of this, which just means you get more belly fat. And this has to do with, so your body thinks cortisol is released anytime you have a stress. We are the only species that can imagine a stress. So my dog, my cat, any animal, and us originally, it would be a real stress, like a saber-toothed tiger jumps out at you and your body has to react. That's the fight or flight. And so you run, and that's adrenaline. But whenever adrenaline is released by your adrenals, this is also released. And this then travels slowly to your liver. And 2 hours later, when you've run out of glucose in your body, because you've been fighting or flighting, your cortisol has activated certain genes. So cortisol actually goes in and binds your DNA and tells it to start making glucose. This is making glucose in a new way in your liver, making it from amino acids. Yes, your body starts breaking down your big muscles in your leg, in your buttocks, and start turning them into glucose. But turns out you don't actually need the glucose. You weren't running for 2 hours away from a saber-toothed tiger. And so what happens is that glucose gets stored as fat around the liver, so it's belly fat. So a lot of people, when they learn to meditate, when they learn to let go and de-stress, they just naturally, a lot of beautiful changes happen, including smiling more. Did you know that smiling is contagious? So when you smile, more people smile. That's why it'd be lovely if more of you turned on your camera and just smiled. And yeah, I mean, if you're going to be like this and grumpy and angry, then don't turn on your camera when we're in office hours. But I would really enjoy seeing more smiles And I'm so appreciative of all of you who have shared your smiles. Anyway, it decreases your thyroid, decreases detox, it decreases your immune system. Because if you're running from a tiger, you don't need to. It also decreases your digestion. You're not needing to do any of these functions. You're having to survive. That means higher rates of cancer. But stress decreases your immune system. So ponder what's going on now with all this media influx and telling you in this fear factor, you have high levels of cortisol. And yeah, I'll tell you a story. So I went on a bike ride on Friday. It was beautiful, and I went on a bike ride to the tofu place, and I left there, and I'm biking home, and this woman is suddenly there in her yard holding a bouquet of lilacs. She's like, would you like some flowers? She was older and she had no teeth, and I just started talking to her, and she wanted me to cut down her lilacs because she had asthma, and her doctors told her if she got the virus, she would never come home again. And she was like, why are you biking without a mask? And yeah, it was fascinating because we don't watch the news. We made a decision in our house to keep this a low stress place, and it's almost like I'm on meditation retreat every day, 24/7. Anyway, it decreases your DHEA, and yeah, your kidneys are just, oh, your adrenals. These are your adrenals. They're above your kidneys. They're just tired. Fatigue, low testosterone. Hey, but we have a medication for that. Low serotonin. Yeah, you're just not sleeping because you're stressed all the time. So, how can we sleep? How can we feel good? How can we make our gingerbread men happy all the time? Oh, well, you could do many things. The biggest one, regular meditation, decreases cortisol and increases DHEA. Regular meditation and gratitude. And I love this slide. I had no idea. I can't believe I never recognized that. But stress is dessert spelled backwards. But instead of eating, this is just going to make you more stressed. Some of you shared your stories with me that I've gained weight during this time because I'm home all the time and I'm a good cook. And yeah, sunshine. And we are so blessed this year. In April and May, the sun has been out. And I just made a commitment. I'm going to start, I go for a walk every day. I go for a bike ride. Laughter. Smiling. Absolutely. And meditation. Exercise. Sleep. So I read a book many years ago that a chair, it's missing one of its legs. It's not going to work. So if you're not eating healthy, you can exercise as much as you want. You can be the mother of all, greatest exerciser in the world. If you're eating crap, not eating real, you got to balance them all. So Rowdy and I were on a walk today, and he was saying, you know, my blood pressure, when he cut his finger, and actually his finger's growing back. Apparently our fingers grow back. So because he didn't cut the bone, the doctors were telling him, so anyway, his blood pressure was really good. And he said, you know, I used to exercise, I used to swim, I used to jog, and my blood pressure was always high. And he was on blood pressure medication until he met me in yoga like 4 years ago. And the first day I was like, oh, you shouldn't take any of those. And he stopped his whole cocktail of medications. I didn't mean that. I was like, but he doesn't take any of them, and he doesn't jog and all that anymore. He just goes for long walks, and he gets to eat my food, and he walks in the sun, and he laughs and smiles more. And he's taking a long nap today because he wrapped his finger too tight and didn't sleep very well last night. Anyway, so molecule number 10 is irisin. This is a really fun topic. I've had people find topics that I've never heard of, and this was one of them. Anyway, this is released when you exercise. It was only discovered 8 years ago at Harvard, of course. And anytime you jiggle or giggle or wiggle or shiver, so usually our classroom's very cold at this time of year because the AC is on really high and everybody's shivering in class. And that's good. You're producing more irisin, but giggling produces more. And it is released from your muscles, and it burns fat It prevents cancer cells from growing. It's why they actually now recommend that you have to walk, you have to exercise when you have cancer. You have to exercise all the time. And it protects your memory, coordinates you. It prevents inflammation. It's an antioxidant, antidepressant. It helps your brain feel rewarded. It protects the heart. It lowers the blood pressure. This was a student did a talk on this, and I have the slide. Yours shouldn't be this dense with information, or as long as mine is. That's an advantage I have. I realize I'm the teacher, right? But she has all her citations here, and then she probably had 1 or 2 slides on each of these, and in her paper she had 1 to 2 paragraphs on each of these. So a reminder, you have to have research papers on your topic, and so that might determine. Pick a topic. You can change it. You're not locked into your topic. Pick a topic that gravitates to you, that you're like, I like to exercise. Maybe I'll do Irisin. So nobody has done this research yet. I am convinced Irisin is released in meditation, even though you're not moving. Although sometimes when you're deep in meditation, there are spontaneous jiggling and wiggling that happens. In Qigong, they talk about it. And so Qigong is this very slow, graceful movement that you do. So finally, I got to the extra credit part. So 1 month, 30 days, meditating. You can sit beautifully like the gnomes. You don't have to sit like that. Some of you can. Again, sit with your spine erect. Might be in a chair. You're not going to be sitting back in the chair. It might be, I have a cushion I sit on in my sunroom. It might be laying down. Guided meditations are wonderful because very few people, until you've done it for a little bit of time. This is one of my favorite. You can send me an email and I will help you find one that works for you. You will all gravitate to a certain one, but I have found YouTube is amazing with the guided meditations. You ideally get to a point where you can also sit without them, but if you are just learning, having a guide who just talks you through, and yeah, and smiling. The gnomes are smiling. You're sitting in meditation with a frown. What's your meditation going to be like? So, all right, and it's okay to have thoughts in meditation. It can also be prayer. This is another one of my favorite, Ho'oponopono. It's from Hawaii, so you can Google that. I do this one almost every day also. Yeah, I've been spending like 6 hours a day in some kind of meditation or prayer, and it's been phenomenal. I think that's what we're all supposed to be doing. Anyway, these gnomes are awesome. I'm going to get them. I'm going to tell Joey for Mother's Day, maybe. You can find me the 3 gnomes meditating. I have a couple in my garden where I do my Qigong. This picture of Joey in Nepal. We're very high in the Himalayas. And that's the Himalayas there. This was the summer monsoon. This is also to remind me to say you can also, I had a number of students last term and they weren't liking the guided meditations. And I said, well, do you read the Bible? And they're like, yeah. And I said, read a passage from the Bible and then just sit quietly and think about it. Or pray just quietly and slowly for 20 minutes. And they were so thrilled because they had always, they continued it. My other class was only for 7 days and then they all continued. And yeah, it's meditating, choosing love. That's what Joey's doing there. And that's me actually this is in Oregon. And I'm looking towards Idaho. This was the first day of our trip across the country 5 summers ago. And I'd never been there. This is Devil's Canyon. What's it called? Anyway, the border, the Snake River goes through there. And yeah, we would just camp in the middle of nowhere. This slide is also to remind you, it will be on this week's lab. If you're watching this the first week of May, we're going to be learning about gas laws. And I realized breathing is gas laws. This is one of my most inspiring humans of all time, from Vietnam, monk from Vietnam, won the Nobel Peace Prize. He could not go back to his own country, and he is phenomenal. His writings are amazing. I highly recommend. And this is a little mantra he does, and I did this for I still do it, especially if I'm feeling stress or anxiety, and so in the morning I'm sitting down and I can't quiet myself. I will repeat part of this and just keep repeating it, and it slows your breathing down. And next thing you know, it's been a half hour and you are smiling and connected to your heart. And so, anyway, he's amazing. And so, it will be in the lab, some of the things you can do. But for the lab, for 7 days, you have to focus on your breathing in your meditation. If you want to take the 30-day challenge, the other 3 weeks, the other 21, 23 days, okay, 23, 24 days, whatever it is, you can listen to guided ones, you can try different things, but specifically for this lab, if you decide to do this option for half of the lab, it is focusing on your breathing and slowing it down, which is an amazing thing. Oh, and that's another picture of the monks, and that's Sunam. If you want, you can say Om or I am, which is right, same idea, and smiling. That's what they did. So Sunam, this is great because I was wearing this jacket today, planting my tomatoes in the garden so they get the beautiful rain because they love the rain from heaven. All right, I think this is the last slide. So I will say thank you. It is, and I wish you all the best in meditating and many blessings, choosing love,